Alrighty. Let me get this out the way. I want to give an example of co-opting movements because we've seen, of course, what happened, all three counts, Derek Chauvin found guilty. And I said, yeah, he's pretty much everybody knew he was going to be found guilty. The co-opting is already started. I think people I don't think realize this quite yet. None of the brain trust of, left-wing YouTube, maybe some folks on Twitter, but I don't go on Twitter anymore, have seen this. But and I'm going to be very, very specific here, because I know this could sound like a conservative argument, but just bear with me. The Democrats have co-opted the protests that are going to occur over the next few weeks, because of the result of the trial. Because basically people said, hey, we don't need another summer 2020. We don't need that. We do not need a summer 2020 again. We do not need it. Okay. And so people were telling AOC, people were telling Maxine Waters, people were telling, all these folks to say, hey, what you need to do is, regardless, you need to go in and, start to make your voices known, And what they're doing now is already co-opting these ideas. What something that arguably was organic last summer, I would say, is now being co-opted. So now we're going to have people going on the streets. There are going to be no fires, this and that. Anyone that does the fires and everything like that, whether that be in Portland, whether that be Minneapolis, wherever, those things are, going to be hugely depressed and disappointed. And it's going to be used by the Democrats to say, look at what happened under Joe Biden's administration. Joe Biden is already going to use this as a talking point to say, hey, look at my administration. You see Derek Chauvin was found guilty. We're going to change the nature of the police. Fact is, we're just going to make things quieter, and we're going to, basically just kind of smooth things out a little bit. Now, that's not a defense of Republicans at all. No, absolutely not. Republicans, of course, are eventually going to give in. They'll just be like, well, actually, I'm not racist, but, these cops getting in trouble. Oh, they're not worth too much. Their points will be quickly kicked to the curb. Nobody cares. The thing is that it's pretty obvious it's being co-opted. And what we're going to see is we're going to see more of these protests that are going to be professionally filmed. And we're going to have these folks who say, a lot of the folks that are saying this radical stuff, some of them will be co-opted. Others, will be kept quiet and everything else like that. But in general, when I was listening to some of these folks, it sounded, no, I'm not going to go there. I was going to say something, but then it was going to be, I know what it would sound like, so I'm not going to say that. What I will say, though, is that a lot of these folks that were talking on the microphones and everything, you notice how the cadence is a bit different on those call and responses, aren't they? It's like, It's not, just say his name, George Floyd. That was, some of it. But also it was, you know, what are we getting, or I can't remember any, but the cadence was very different, which implies that, the co-option is going to be deep. The thing is that ultimately not much is going to happen with the cops. This is going to be the same thing that happened with people like D. Ray McKesson. D. Ray McKesson, of course, being part of BLM. But now he writes for magazines like GQ. The thing is that a lot of folks are, Black Lives Matter, of course, a lot of folks don't talk, haven't talked about it necessarily, but the fact is that they, the supposed leaders of it now have all this money. They're basically saying, we're still for donations, this and that, but it's different from what's on the ground. And so there's still this defense of what's going on the ground. And I think that those, the disconnect is going to be significantly simplified, meaning they're going to be under the same co-option, I think. They're going to say, yeah, it's just like anything else. Is you're going to get some folks who are going to, take the bait, and they're going to say, yeah, I'll take it. The most successful folks, the more influential folks in these movements are going to be sat down and say, hey, you can have a nice cushy job over here, where you can get all this money, you can get a nice house, stuff like that. Instead of going out there in the street all the time. And we'll get some new housing, and we'll change the situation with the police, this and that. We're going to make sure that you live in a nice neighborhood. And so this is what's going to happen to some degree. I do want to mention too the COPE that's been happening. I saw a poll, of course, COPE about what they were doing. And of course, this Derek Chauvin trial, like, oh, it's just, or you see these folks who are just like, oh, it's so awful what's happening to white people. Oh, let it go. It's just silly, Anyway, I think that's all I have to say about it. I was kind of schizo and not as focused as it should have been. But basically, teal deer, well, I'll just do it this way. Is it basically, people learn, it's just like anything else, is that eventually it's going to get co-opted. They don't use COINTELPRO anymore, at least not in the same way. This is just, COINTELPRO maybe, 2.5 maybe. Now we'll have AOC, who still has a lot of support amongst folks, and they'll say, well, she's not a socialist, but, she's on the road to it, and we're going to get Cori Bush, and we're going to get Maxine Waters, even though Maxine Waters isn't part of the squad or anything. She, she'll serve her purpose, because, like, it was interesting when I saw this little clip of it. It's like, what should the protesters do? Should it go national? National? No. It doesn't need to go national. Which goes to show already that this is going to be a localized thing. It's going to be used for propaganda purposes. It's going to be used for elections. It's going to be used to keep the Dems in control. And of course, people are still going to say, vote blue no matter who, though. We got to attack those Republicans. Yeah, hate the Republicans all you want to. But to me, the Republicans in general, I think people get so, you can go ahead and debate about how relevant the anti-trans laws and, places like, Texas or I think Mississippi as well. I think it's Mississippi. Maybe I'm getting confused. But anyway, or maybe it's Georgia. No. But anyway, is it could be, just more of a fodder for future change to happen? I don't know. But I think that's all I really have to say to it. Democrats and Republicans are both cringe. I think it's important to say that. And I think that folks who carry water for either party are full of shit. I'm just going to be honest with you. Yeah, there may be some good eggs in there, maybe. I'll try to be somewhat good faith, but overall, no. The Democrat and Republican Party systems are just mask off with Republicans in terms of, oh, we're so, we're going to call ourselves libertarians, but in reality, we don't care about, that except the rich. Democrats will give lip service to ideas and may give some general benefits, but in general will still support the system as it is. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Hopefully y'all enjoy that. See you later. Bye-bye.